There is a certain kind of heart that never fully relaxes in the warmth of closeness. A heart that listens for footsteps, even in moments of silence, preparing itself for an ending that hasn't come. It understands tenderness, but not permanence. Affection feels like a borrowed room. Connection feels like a season already turning cold. For some, love has never been a steady landscape, only a shifting weather. And so they brace themselves, even while being held, for the moment the embrace dissolves. Not because they don't long for love, but because they learned, early, quietly, painfully, that something can feel real and still vanish. This story is for them, for the hearts that expect disappearance more than devotion. There is a particular stillness that settles over people who have learned to monitor love too closely, not because they want to, and not because they enjoy living in a state of anticipation, but because their hearts have grown accustomed to the slightest shifts in tone, mood, or silence. They live with an inner sentinel, a quiet watcher that never fully sleeps. It's not paranoia, it's muscle memory. They know what it feels like when affection begins to thin out. They recognize the subtle cooling of someone's voice, the faint distance forming in a gaze, the tiny delays in a message that used to arrive instantly. Even when there is no real threat, they brace themselves, not dramatically, not visibly, but in the soft, private spaces of their chest. Some people call it trust issues, but inside it feels less like distrust and more like preparation. A long habit of tightening the heart before something is taken away. For them, love is never simply love. It is a landscape to be scanned, a horizon to be checked for storms. They measure pauses. They read silence like weather forecasts. They listen to every "it's nothing" as though it might be the start of a goodbye. And the saddest part is how quietly it all happens, how invisible the vigilance is, even to the partners who are genuinely trying to stay. On the outside, they may appear calm. They smile, they laugh, they lean their head on someone's shoulder. They seem present. But beneath that presence lies a constant readiness for absence. It's the kind of emotional posture that forms when someone has lost love too abruptly before, when affection turned into emptiness without warning, when closeness dissolved overnight, when someone they trusted failed to return. Sudden loss has a way of lingering. It teaches the nervous system to doubt the ground beneath every moment of connection. It turns anticipation into a survival skill. And so, even in relationships where everything is stable, no arguments, no warning signs, no shifting intentions, the body still asks, how long before this changes? How long before something is taken away again? The irony is that these individuals rarely talk about this fear. They know it can sound irrational or overly sensitive, so they hold it in. They carry an emotional stopwatch in their mind, counting the seconds of silence, interpreting every small deviation as potential danger. It isn't because they expect people to hurt them. It's because uncertainty has hurt them more than anything else. This quiet vigilance becomes a way of living, a reflex, a rhythm. They don't lean fully into joy because part of them is always rehearsing loss. They don't allow love to feel fully safe because safety feels unfamiliar, temporary. And yet, even with this tension, their longing for love is real. Their capacity for devotion is intact. They feel deeply, sometimes more deeply than others, precisely because they know the fragility of connection. The pain is not in loving. The pain is in expecting the love to vanish. They wish they could rest. They wish they could trust the warmth without checking its temperature. They yearn for the kind of love that doesn't have to be guarded against, not because the other person is perfect, but because their body has finally learned that affection doesn't evaporate in an instant. But that relearning takes time. And for now, their world is shaped by a subtle, constant readiness. This chapter stands in the doorway of their inner experience. It holds up a mirror to the silent tension they carry, the tender ache of wanting closeness while preparing for its disappearance. This is the unspoken vigil, the watchful heart waiting for a departure that may never come, the beginning of a story about love, fear, memory, and the quiet endurance of hope. Fear rarely begins in adulthood. It begins in rooms where a child learned to scan the world long before they had language for what was missing. Some children learn early that presence is inconsistent. A parent who drifts in and out, a caregiver whose warmth changes with their mood, an adult who loves deeply one day and withdraws without reason on another, a home that does not break them outright, but keeps them guessing. Children don't interpret these experiences as emotional complexity. They interpret them as instability. They begin to assume that connection is conditional, unpredictable, and fragile. A child notices when affection arrives like weather, warm one moment, cold the next. They notice when their needs feel inconvenient, when their tears are ignored, when they are scolded for being too much, too sensitive, or too needy. And so a pattern begins. They become small, quiet, observant. They shrink their needs so they won't overwhelm anyone. They listen for footsteps to know which version of a parent they will encounter. They watch faces, searching for the earliest signs of withdrawal. Love becomes something they monitor. Safety becomes something they perform. Some children experience more dramatic losses. A parent who leaves suddenly, a caregiver who disappears without explanation, a relationship that ends abruptly during critical developmental stages. Even if adults try to soften the blow, the child still receives a message. Love can evaporate overnight, and you may never understand why. From that point on, the nervous system learns a single lesson. Never assume they'll stay, and this belief becomes a blueprint, something quiet but powerful, shaping every relationship that follows. In adolescence, they may become fiercely independent, believing it's safer to rely on themselves. Or they may cling to relationships, terrified of any small sign that the other person is losing interest. They may try to be perfect, the easy one, the adaptable one, the unproblematic one, hoping this will keep people close. By adulthood, these patterns feel less like reactions and more like personality traits. People may describe them as sensitive, intuitive, perceptive. They may even take pride in their ability to read emotional shifts. But beneath that skill lies an old fear, the fear of repeating the past. Every sudden distancing, every unanswered message, every moment of uncertainty awakens something ancient. Memories that the conscious mind doesn't recall, but the body remembers clearly. The origins of emotional patterns are rarely dramatic. They often unfold quietly, in the ordinary moments of childhood, in the pauses, the silences, the absences that were never explained. The child becomes an adult who doesn't fully trust good things, not because they are cynical, but because hope has always carried a shadow. They know sweetness, but they also know its transience. They love wholeheartedly, but somewhere deep inside, they brace for the moment that love turns away. This chapter isn't about blame. It's about tracing the path of the fear back to its beginning, understanding that the expectation of disappearing love didn't emerge from nowhere. It grew from the emotional environment that shaped the earliest versions of the self. People who expect love to vanish are not broken. They're adapting. They're surviving patterns that were formed long before they had any power to question them. And now, as adults, they carry both the longing for closeness and the burden of history. A history that taught them to prepare for loss, even in the presence of affection. This is where the fear was learned, in childhood's quiet corridors, where the heart first discovered how unpredictable love could be. The mind does not fear disappearance because it is fragile. It fears it because it is intelligent. Psychology has long recognized the pattern of anticipating abandonment, not as weakness, but as a protective mechanism, a way the brain tries to shield a person from the shock of unexpected loss. At the core of this lies attachment theory. People who grew up with inconsistent affection often develop what researchers call anxious attachment. Their nervous system is primed to detect even the smallest changes in relationships, not because they want to worry, but because their earliest experiences taught them instability. The brain's threat detection system becomes hyperactive. It scans for micro-expressions, tone shifts, delayed responses. The amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm center, becomes quick to signal danger when patterns feel familiar. Rejection sensitivity is another key piece. When someone has been hurt abruptly, their brain becomes more attentive to cues that resemble past wounds. A small pause in conversation, a distracted tone, a shorter hug. To someone else, these moments mean nothing. To the hypervigilant heart, they are data points. The brain predicts future emotional pain based on past experiences. It prefers false alarms over surprises. It believes it is safer to expect loss than to be unprepared for it. This is not irrational. It is patterned, learned, reinforced. Neuroscience shows that early emotional environments shape how a person's stress response develops. If love was unpredictable, cortisol levels remained frequently elevated. The system learned to stay alert. Even decades later, consistent love cannot immediately override patterns that were formed in the most impressionable years of life. The prefrontal cortex, the rational part of the mind, may understand that a partner is trustworthy. But the emotional brain moves faster. It responds to familiarity, not logic. It reacts to echoes of the past. All of this creates the cycle. They want closeness, but their nervous system stays guarded. They know their partner is not the person who hurt them, but their body still prepares for old endings. Hypervigilance becomes a habit, not chosen, but deeply ingrained. But there is another layer. People who anticipate abandonment often have profound empathy. Their sensitivity is not just fear. It is attunement, an ability to read emotional currents that others miss. It is a skill born from necessity, sharpened by experience. Yet the same sensitivity that helps them understand others can also overwhelm them. They interpret ambiguity as threat. They assume silence means disinterest. They imagine loss before it happens. The mind tries to protect the heart, but the protection comes at a cost. Relationships become tiring, not because they are unhealthy, but because carrying constant alertness is exhausting. The body remains in a low-grade fight-or-flight state. Moments that should feel calm are overshadowed by vigilance. Still, none of this is a personal flaw. It is the nervous system doing its best with the information it has. Understanding the psychology behind the fear helps shift the narrative. It reveals the pattern not as weakness, but as adaptation. A deeply human attempt to navigate love with the tools once required for emotional survival. This chapter offers clarity. The expectation of sudden disappearance is not irrational. It is scientific. It is patterned. It is learned. And it is possible, slowly, gently, for the brain to learn new patterns in return. Inside the people who fear sudden disappearance, there is a conflict that rarely shows on their faces. A quiet battle between longing and caution. They want closeness, deeply, sincerely. They crave the feeling of being understood, chosen, cherished. Yet the moment someone gets close enough to offer that warmth, their instincts shift. Hope moves forward. Fear pulls back. This internal split creates 1,000 small hesitations. Moments where they hold themselves at the edge of vulnerability, unable to fully step in. They may silence their own desires to avoid appearing demanding. They may downplay their emotions to avoid scaring someone away. They may apologize for needing reassurance, feeling shame for wanting what others seem to accept so naturally. Inside, it feels like a contradiction. Why does the thing I want most scare me the most? This chapter explores that contradiction. The fear of loss makes them cautious, but their longing for love pushes them toward connection. The two forces collide, creating emotional turbulence that others rarely see. They might test relationships unintentionally, pulling away slightly to see if the other person follows. Not because they want distance, but because they want proof. Not with manipulation, but with fear. If someone doesn't respond as expected, panic starts to whisper. If someone takes too long to text back, the mind fills the silence with memories of previous vanishing acts. Their partners might feel confused. They might question what changed. But nothing changed, except the person's fear becoming louder than their hope. And beneath all this lies exhaustion. Emotional vigilance is draining. Wanting connection while preparing for its collapse wears down even the strongest hearts. They may begin to self-sabotage without realizing it. Declining invitations, withholding feelings, avoiding deeper commitment because they imagine how painful the ending will be. Some push people away gently. Some cling tightly, hoping closeness will prevent loss. Others oscillate between the two. This conflict is not immaturity. It is a survival strategy. To the nervous system, attachment is the site of both comfort and danger. And so every step closer feels like stepping into a room where past ghosts still linger. But amid all this struggle, there is one quiet truth. People who fear abandonment are often capable of extraordinary love. Their sensitivity means they notice small joys. Their longing makes them cherish consistency. Their awareness of loss gives them a deep appreciation for presence. The conflict inside them is not a flaw. It is a measure of how much connection matters to them. This chapter shines light on the inner collision, the part of their heart that leans in and the part that holds back, the push and pull, the hope and hesitation, the courage and the ache. It is the emotional tension that defines their experience of love, wanting to rest in someone's arms while replaying every memory of arms that let go without warning. This is the quiet resistance, the internal storm beneath gentle smiles, the part of them that wants to trust, but hasn't yet learned how to stop anticipating the moment everything changes. Patterns do not break dramatically. They unravel slowly, through moments of awareness that feel small but shift everything. For someone who expects love to disappear, the turning point often begins with noticing, gently, honestly, without judgment. It may happen during a quiet evening, when they realize they've been listening for signs of withdrawal that aren't there. It may happen during a moment of tenderness, when they feel the instinct to pull away, but choose to stay present for one more breath. It may happen when they hear their own voice apologizing for emotions that deserve space. Awareness starts as a soft whisper. This fear did not begin here. This relationship is not the past repeating. This moment deserves to be seen clearly. They begin to see their reactions in real time. The spike of anxiety when someone doesn't answer immediately. The tightening in the chest when someone looks distracted. The urge to retreat before being pushed away. Instead of acting on these instincts automatically, they start observing them. Not suppressing, not judging, just watching. This is the beginning of change, not fixing, simply noticing. In these moments of awareness, the past and present become distinct. The nervous system still reacts, but the mind starts to understand what is happening beneath the reaction. Awareness does not erase the fear. It gives the fear context. It turns instinct into insight. They may begin to question the catastrophic narratives their mind creates. Is this silence actually a threat? Is this distance intentional or just human? Is this feeling real or is it an echo? Small realizations accumulate. They see how often they brace for endings that never arrive. They recognize how much emotional energy they spend preparing for loss instead of experiencing presence. Sometimes the turning point arrives through someone else, a partner who remains consistent, patient, steady. Not perfect, but reliable enough to challenge the old blueprint. Their presence becomes a mirror that reflects the gap between expectation and reality. But the most powerful shift happens internally. It happens when a person finally understands. The fear is real, but the danger may not be. This recognition allows space for softness, for curiosity, for the possibility that love can stay without vanishing. They begin experimenting with trust in small doses, leaning slightly deeper into moments of closeness, allowing themselves to believe a gentle reassurance, letting silence exist without assuming it is a signal of departure. Progress is subtle, barely noticeable to anyone else, but internally, it reshapes everything. Awareness becomes the first separation between the person they were shaped to be and the person they are becoming. This chapter marks the moment when the heartbeat steadies just enough to question the familiar narrative. When the old reflexes are still present, but no longer in control. When a person begins to recognize that expecting loss is not the same as being destined for it. It is the dawn of clarity. Not a cure, not a transformation, but a shift. The first breath taken without holding the ribs tight. The first moment of recognizing the pattern instead of being consumed by it. This is awareness, quiet, gentle, but powerful enough to open the door to a different way of being. Healing does not announce itself. It arrives in small, nearly invisible changes. For someone who has spent their life expecting love to disappear, healing begins with learning the weight of staying, both their own staying and the staying of others. It begins when they realize that consistency is not a trick, that someone returning after every disagreement is not unusual, but normal, that emotional steadiness is not a performance, but a pattern. This is unfamiliar terrain. The nervous system, accustomed to turbulence, does not immediately trust calm, but with repetition, the body starts to soften. It starts to believe what the mind has suspected. Not everyone leaves. Healing is not the removal of fear. It is the gradual coexistence with it. They learn to notice when their instincts flare up, the sudden anxiety, the urge to withdraw, the expectation of abandonment, and they begin to soothe themselves rather than react instantly. They learn to ask quieter questions. What am I afraid will happen? What evidence do I have right now? Is this a memory or a moment? They practice being honest, even when vulnerability feels dangerous. They begin expressing the fears they once tried to hide, the lingering tension, the sudden dread, the past that still lives inside their reactions. And when someone responds with understanding instead of annoyance, the healing deepens. But healing also happens alone. It happens in the quiet moments when they realize they no longer monitor every silence, when they no longer assume the worst as the default, when they catch themselves relaxing into affection without preparing for its end. The process is slow. Some days are full of ease, others feel like regressions. But healing is rarely linear. It is a lifelong unfolding, a gradual rewriting of the nervous system's expectations. They begin experiencing love as something stable, something spacious, not a cliff's edge, but a field. They learn to receive reassurance without shame, to accept care without anticipating the moment it disappears, to trust that connection can survive miscommunication, conflict, distance. The greatest part of healing, however, is internal integration. They stop blaming themselves for needing reassurance. They stop apologizing for their sensitivity. They recognize that the parts of them that fear abandonment are not enemies. They are younger versions of themselves asking for safety. And with compassion, they begin offering that safety internally. The more they practice self-kindness, the less intense their fear becomes. The more they experience stability, the less their past dictates their reactions. Healing is not dramatic. It is a softening, an opening, a return to the body learning that love can stay long enough for it to stop bracing. This chapter honors the slow pace of transformation, how a person gradually rewrites the story their childhood taught them, how they learn the weight of staying, not as a burden, but as a reassurance. They discover that love does not have to be a vanishing act, that some arms do not let go, that some bonds deepen instead of dissolving. This is the beginning of trust, not blind trust, but earned trust, built breath by breath, moment by moment, presence by presence. There will always be a small echo inside those who once expected love to disappear. A whisper of the past, a trace of vigilance that surfaces in moments of uncertainty. Healing does not silence the echo completely. It simply teaches the heart how to coexist with it. Over time, the echo becomes softer, less insistent, no longer the navigator of their choices, but a faint memory of who they used to be. They begin to understand that love is not measured by its potential to vanish, but by the way it remains through ordinary days, by the steadiness that builds over time, by the quiet rituals of connection, shared meals, passing glances, gentle conversations, the consistency of showing up. The heart, once tight with anticipation, begins to loosen. It expands, slowly, courageously. It learns that love can be more than a fleeting season. It can be a landscape with depth, longevity, and warmth. The person who once monitored every silence now lets silence exist. They no longer assume that distance means rejection. They recognize that people can be distracted without disappearing, busy without abandoning, human without hurting. The echo grows quiet because the present begins to outweigh the past. They start seeing themselves differently, not as someone destined for loss, but as someone capable of receiving steady love, someone worthy of staying, someone whose needs do not drive people away. This shift does not come from grand revelations. It comes from accumulation, moments of safety, reassurance, repetition. The nervous system learns at the pace of consistency, not force. And so, love becomes a gentle teacher, not a dramatic savior, but a quiet companion. The person learns to rest, to trust, to breathe into softness without scanning for danger. This does not mean they become fearless. It means fear no longer leads. The echo becomes a reminder, not of pain, but of resilience, a testament to how far they have traveled, how deeply they have healed, how many times they chose to stay open despite every instinct telling them to close. Eventually, they look at their own story with compassion. They understand why they feared love's disappearance. They honor the younger self who learned to protect the heart the only way they knew. But now, they walk with a steadier rhythm, with a heart that trusts the ground beneath it, with a sense of presence that is no longer overshadowed by anticipation. The quiet pain that once shaped their world becomes just one part of their history, no longer the author of their future. And as the echo grows quiet, something else grows louder. The gentle hum of belonging, the warmth of connection that does not vanish, the feeling of finally inhabiting love instead of fearing it. This final chapter closes not with a promise, but with an understanding. Love is not guaranteed. People can still leave. Silence can still hurt. But the heart has learned something new, that the fear of disappearance does not have to define the experience of presence, that love can be held without bracing, that safety can be real, even for those who once expected everything to dissolve without warning. The echo fades, the heart opens, and the quiet pain transforms into a quiet peace.